I knew that people were going to have questions about why we are choosing to leave Northwest Indiana, considering that Jacob will be here and we will be living hours away. First of all, it was not an easy decision to make. We wanted to do our best to stay in Northwest Indiana until Jacob was 18. However, like the one place that we found that we got approved for the apartment that I told you guys about um, was in Gary, Indiana. And even with it being a studio, we still would have had to pay like 575 or 537 or something a month. And then we would also have to pay for electricity, and considering what part of Gary it was in, trying to get my husband back and forth to work and trying to get myself back and forth to work, like it would be even farther for me to try to get to work. Like from where this apartment is that I've lived in since 2016 um, is about like a little over a half an hour, right around 45 minutes. And it would take that much time just to get my husband to work, which where we live right now, um, trying to get my husband to and from work is maybe like 5-10 minutes, based on traffic and how well traffic is moving. So we would have ran through all the gas and had no money to get him back and forth to work because my husband cannot drive right now. That's why I have to go pick him up and drop him off and all that stuff. I do all the driving because I have a license. He does not have a license currently due to some legal issues, because he got a ticket and didn't show up to court because his stepdad, where he was getting his mail, didn't let him know that he had a court date. So he missed the court date. They suspended his license. Bloody bloody. He still can't drive. So basically, we were looking for anything that was closer to my job and his job to make it at least semi-feasible for us to be able to stay in Northwest Indiana. Um, we had found another place that was closer to my job, but they actually told us that we made too much money. So when my husband first talked to them, he said, like on his own with just income from him working, he would have made $300 short of what he needed to income qualify for this other apartment. And when they added in my income, we made like $800 too much. So we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to make sure that we had a place for ourselves that we could feel comfortable with. And then we came across this posting online, with a real estate investment company, and they were trying to sell this house in the city. I don't even know if it's a town or a city, where we will be moving to next week. And it was $0 down and $450 a month for 8 years, owner financing. So we chose to go for it. And so that's why we are leaving Northwest Indiana, because like literally we had found studios for $475, but then they wanted like first and last month's rent plus a security deposit, which was just way too much for us financially. I mean, you guys know I've been pretty transparent about the financial issues that we've been having. If we couldn't even afford food, there's really no way that we can afford like $1,600 to rent a studio apartment or a one-bedroom apartment. So that's why we are leaving Northwest Indiana. It's just not financially feasible for us at this moment in time. It's still like a relatively larger city. I think I've talked about this in the other video where I made talking about like another moving update or whatever. But it's definitely going to be hard for both of us. We are both very sad. My husband hasn't even told Jacob yet that we're leaving Northwest Indiana. So I know it's going to be a hard conversation for him to have with Jake, because Jacob is so used to us being here, and him being able to come over basically every other weekend or every weekend, really. And now that we're going to live approximately 3 hours away, to drive up here and then drive back down would be 6 hours of driving, and I really don't think that that's feasible. I don't know what exactly we're gonna work out as far as visitation goes, but we will still have Jacob in our lives regardless. And I want to have a good weekend with him this weekend, because like I was telling my husband, this is probably the last, consecutive weekend that we're going to be able to spend with him for at least a little bit, until we get the house situated and set up so that it's safe for him, and that he has a room of his own and just a place to call his own, until we get all of like the mattresses and stuff moved down there, because we're not bringing everything with us right away, because we're going to have to do work to the house, and we don't exactly know the full extent. We know for the most part everything that needs to be done, but we don't know the full extent of everything that we're going to have to do. So that's why we rented a storage unit, and we are going to pay for a storage unit until we're ready to bring this stuff down. I'm really emotional about it, because obviously I love Jacob as well. It's going to be hard not having him around every other weekend. I really seriously look forward to having him with us every other weekend. I love him as if he's my own son. It's really hard, and I wish that there was more like affordable housing in this area for people who don't necessarily make as much as $1,000 a month in rent. Like, even here at this apartment, this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and we have it at a very cheap price, because when my old roommate and I moved in back in January of 2016, we lucked out, because we signed a longer lease. I think it was either a 14-month lease or a 16-month lease. I can't remember. Because we signed that lease, we rented a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom for $732 a month. Now, last year they raised our rent, so now our rent is $757, but then you also have to pay for sewer, garbage, water, and electricity. And so once you add all of that stuff in, not even the electricity because it's separate, once you add in sewer, water, trash, the rent becomes over $800 a month. And like, we also, when we moved in, we had digital thermostats so that we could keep a better track of what the actual heat was and all of that stuff. And now they took those out and put in old ones again, so we can't control that anymore. And currently, right now, for a 900 square foot apartment, it's been about $200 a month in electricity bills, which is fucking ridiculous. Excuse my language, but it is. So we can't do it anymore. For the last few months, we haven't paid rent. My old roommate has actually helped us with rent, and I couldn't even be more thankful, because without him paying the rent, we wouldn't be here right now. We would be on the street or, in some type of shelter somewhere. But I'm just so utterly thankful that we found the place that we found, and that we're making this move, even as hard as it's going to be farther away from Jacob. We will still be in the state of Indiana, so we can come up and see him. It's just going to be like one of those things where we have to figure out the logistics of everything. We want to come up and spend time with my mother-in-law, obviously, because we're going to be 3 hours away from her also, and we have relied on her for a lot of things. So I am definitely scared, because when we didn't have money for food, she provided us with either money to go buy groceries or she provided us with whatever groceries she had that she didn't necessarily need. So I'm definitely scared about going down there, and I don't want to be farther away from my mother-in-law and, you know, from family and from Jacob, obviously. But at this point, I don't feel like we have any other choice. Obviously, we don't have any other choice because we already bought the house. But I didn't feel like we had any other decision to be made other than to look for somewhere else that was more affordable for us, like, to live, because you know, it's difficult trying to raise a family and trying to raise a teenage boy when you can't even get enough food to feed that teenage boy, you know, because there's been times when we have literally gone without food so that Jacob could eat when he was here. You know, we would go out and buy ramen noodles and stuff like that, and he loves ramen noodles, don't get me wrong, but, you know, he also loves pizza rolls and pizza, and we haven't had those types of things for him all the time, you know, unless my mother-in-law helped and bought him those things because we didn't have enough money to buy food for ourselves. So you know, it's going to be bittersweet. It's going to be, you know, happy for us because we get to, you know, go and decorate our own house the way that we want it to be. We get to go make all these new changes, new jobs, new friends, hopefully, a new neighborhood, a new area to, you know, live in. But oh, and we also have the new dog. We haven't decided on a name or anything yet, but we don't actually pick her up until March 26th. So we will have been in our new home for about a week before we get her. So I don't know. It's sad because we're leaving Jacob up here and it'll be, you know, at least 3 hours away. But at the same time, I feel like we can provide so much better for him down there. You know, like my husband and I couldn't even buy him Christmas gifts this year because we didn't have extra money because we had to pay all these bills. And, you know, it's something where you have to think about the benefits of something based on, you know, how things could improve instead of focusing on the negatives. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, is focus on the positives and not the negatives. So anyways, I hope that explains to you, like, we didn't want to leave Jacob. We didn't want to leave Northwest Indiana with Jacob still being in high school. We wanted to wait until he was 18, so then if he wanted to move down with us, he could move down with us. He is always welcome at our house. He will always have a place in whatever place we live. And yeah, so I just wanted to share my feelings about that. Thank you for watching. I know it's a longer video. If you made it this far, thank you so much. And I will keep the updates coming, so stay tuned for more.